O God of all creation, bless this, our land and nation. Justice be our shield and defender. May we dwell in unity, peace and liberty. Plenty be found within our borders. Welcome to the Morning Prime. This is KTN News. And of course, what we're talking about today is a dark moment for this country. President William Ruto declared 3 days of national mourning after the CDF, Chief of Defense Forces, Francis Ogola, passed on yesterday following a helicopter crash. In fact, East Africa community is joining Kenyans in these 3 days of mourning after his demise. We'll give you more details of this particular tragic incident and much more lined up on the program. My name is Anki Dorisumbat. Let us begin with the papers. Right here, General's tragic last moments as put on the Standard. In line of duty, Kenya mourns General Francis Ogola, who was killed in a military chopper crash in Elgeyo Marakwet alongside 9 other gallant members of the military. A decorated Chief of Defense Forces who served in office for slightly under a year. He was described by President Ruto as a valiant general who died in the line of duty and in the service of the country. More of that is covered on pages 2, 3, 4, and 5. But also allow me to quickly quote the words of President William Ruto directly as quoted right below that image of the late General Francis Ogola. And he said, "The demise of General Ogola is a painful loss to me, and certainly the sorrow we all feel about his passing is shared by all the people of Kenya, and especially the KDF fraternity. A distinguished 4-star general has fallen in the course of duty and service to the country." General Francis Ogola was born in the year 1962 and has died in the year 2024. You're also seeing there a picture of the crash scene of the Bell military helicopter at Kaben in Elgeyo Marakwet yesterday. The accident killed General Francis Ogola alongside 9 other officers and servicemen and a woman. There were only 2 survivors. That's the front page of the Standard. Let's take a look at other papers this morning. But you can see that all these particular dailies this morning are in unity. They are speaking one voice. Let's take a look at the front page of the Daily Nation this morning. Final salute. General Francis Ogola, 1962 to 2024. As you can see, it is quite similar. A different picture of him right there on the front page of the Daily Nation. What they're calling tragedy. President William Ruto declares 3 days of national mourning after Chief of Defense Forces Francis Ogola dies in a helicopter crash that also claimed the lives of 9 others. You'll see more details on the Daily Nation, pages 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And in the words of President William Ruto yesterday during his address to the nation, he said that he greatly celebrated the late CDF. President William Ruto announces the passing of the Chief of Defense Forces, Francis Ogola, to the media and the nation yesterday at State House. That picture right below. But we also have the other victims aligned, including the Brigadier Swale Saidi, Colonel Duncan Keitani, Lieutenant Colonel David Sawe, Major George Magondu, Captain Sora Mohammed, Captain Hilary Letali, Sergeant John Kinywa Mureithi, Sergeant Cliffons Omondi, and Sergeant Rose Nyarira. That is the main headline on the Daily Nation this morning. There are many other stories also in the same particular paper. However, the front page, just like on the front page of the Standard, has highlighted the celebration and the announcement of the passing of the General Francis Ogola, who was born in the year 1962 and died yesterday in the year 2024. Let's take a look at other papers this morning as well, lined up for you in our paper review. We have in line the Business Daily, the Star, but on the People Daily, death of a general. Death of a general in the line of duty. That is what we're seeing there. Kenyans thrown into mourning following the death of Chief of Defense Forces alongside other gallant officers in plane crash while leading his team to restore peace in banditry hit North Rift. That is the headline on the People Daily this morning, similar to what we've seen on the Standard and the Daily Nation. And you're also seeing there an image of President William Ruto speaking on the same. It's still going to be on your screen on the People Daily. He eulogized the late Ogola as a distinguished four-star general that has fallen in the line of duty. And also he conveyed his deepest condolences to all families that are grieving this untimely loss and our mourning as a nation as well. Let's take a look at Taifa Leo this morning. Now, Taifa Leo puts it in Kiswahili, still mourning the late CDF. Mkuu wa majeshi afariki ajalini. Mkuu wa majeshi afariki ajalini, Francis Omondi Ogola, 1962 to 2024, with the image of the late CDF, General Francis Omondi Ogola. Now, that is it for the Taifa Leo this morning. Also, just keeping track with the similarities that we have seen on the Standard, the Daily Nation, Taifa People Daily. But that does not end at that. The entire East African community has joined Kenya in celebrating the life of CDF, General Francis Omondi Ogola. However, we also have heard and seen in their headlines different heads of state. We've also had dignitaries, top officials in the country eulogize the late Francis Omondi Ogola through their social media platforms, and in different ways they have, of course, condoled with his family. His own daughter did speak on LinkedIn, and once we get a chance, we will bring that to your screen as well. Let's take a look at the Tanzanian Mwananchi newspaper front page on your screen, just to show the cohesion that East Africa has at this point in time. Now, on the Mwananchi newspaper, of course, you're seeing it on your screen right there. What they're saying is kauli ya tutawapoteza ya kigogo UVCCM moto. However, that is the main headline, but below unasema mkuu wa majeshi Kenya afariki kwa ajali ya helicopter. Right there. Nairobi, mkuu wa majeshi wa Kenya Generali Francis Ogola amefariki dunia kwa ajali ya helicopter. That is the front page of the Tanzanian newspaper in as far as standing with Kenya is concerned. Na tunashukuru sana ndugu zetu huko Tanzania jirani kwa kusimama na Kenya wakati huu. We appreciate you very much for standing with Kenya. But let's cross over to another neighbor, to the Daily Monitor, all the way in Uganda. And Uganda has equally conveyed their condolences and standing with Kenya as a community. You're seeing there the image of the late Kenya Army Chief General Francis Ogola, who died in a chopper crash 1962 to 2024, giving you a glimpse of what is happening and how this particular news has hit not just Kenya, but the neighbors as well in East Africa community. Therefore, that is it for the papers, and many thanks to the Daily Monitor as well, and of course the main papers in Tanzania. And some of you probably missed the news and you want to catch up with the story. Who is General Francis Omondi Ogola? Let's give you in a nutshell and celebrate his life with you as well. And in our stories this morning, General Francis Omondi Ogola, the Chief of the Defense Forces, is dead. Ogola and 11 other military officers of different ranks who were on official duties crashed a few minutes to 3 p.m. earlier yesterday. President William Ruto, the Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, confirmed the unfortunate incident in his address to the nation. Let us now listen in to what the President said earlier.
Today, at 2:20 p.m., our nation suffered a tragic air accident in Sindar area, Keben location, 3rd Division, in Elgeyo Marakwet County. I am deeply saddened to announce the passing on of General Francis Omondi Ogola, the Chief of the Kenya Defence Forces. Together with him in the crash were 11 other gallant military personnel, 9 who also passed on with him, and 2 survivors. The gallant military personnel who passed on with General Ogola are Brigadier Swale Saidi, Colonel Duncan Keitany, Lieutenant Colonel David Sawe, Major George Benson Magondu, who was also the pilot, Captain Sora Mohammed, Captain Hilary Litali, Senior Sergeant John Kinywa Mureithi, Sergeant Cliffons Omondi, and Sergeant Rose Nyawira. The Chief of Defence Forces on board the Kenya Air Force Hiwi helicopter had left Nairobi this morning to visit troops deployed in the North Rift under the Operation Maliza Uhalifu, and to also inspect the ongoing school renovation works in the following schools: Jesitet Primary School, Cheptulel High School, Chepoton Primary School, Ksa Primary School, and Saplimoi Primary School. As part of his working tour, the CDF had been briefed on the security situation by a multi-agency team stationed at Chesitet in Baringo County, after which he proceeded to the Kainuk Forward Operating Base in the Turkana County, where he addressed troops, commending them for their resilience and operational success. The Chief of Defence Forces and his entourage departed from Kainuk to Chesegon in West Pokot County, where he launched the rehabilitation of Cheptulel Boys High School. He then departed Chesegon for the Recruits Training School in Uasin Gishu County, where he was scheduled to inspect construction facilities at the institution. Unfortunately, the aircraft crashed shortly after takeoff. This is a very sad moment, a moment of great sadness. For me, as the Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defence Forces, it is a tragic moment for the Kenya Defence Forces fraternity, and it is a most unfortunate day for the nation at large. Our motherland has lost one of her most valiant generals. We have also lost gallant officers, servicemen, and women. The demise of General Ogola is a painful loss to me, and certainly the sorrow we all feel about this passing on is shared by all of the people of Kenya, and most especially the KDF fraternity.
Now, this crash happened in Sindar area on the border of Elgeyo Marakwet and West Pokot. Ogola has transitioned barely a year after he was appointed as the Chief of Defense Forces by President William Ruto on the 29th of April, the year 2023. 9 other officers of different ranks also died in the accident, and 2 others survived. Ode Francis reports.
A Kenya Defence Force helicopter carrying Chief of Defence Forces General Francis Ogola crashed in the Sindar area, the volatile border of Elgeyo Marakwet and West Pokot. The ill-fated aircraft engulfed in flame shortly after departure from the Chesagon area near Liter Girls Secondary School in Sindar, Kaben village. This calamity has thrust General Ogola's untimely demise into the national spotlight, prompting parliamentary discourse led by figures as Millie Odhiambo and Kimani Ichung'wah.
We are hearing rumors of an air crash involving the CDF, Francis Ogola, and 5 others. Madam Speaker, that is something of national interest and serious national concern. Our majority leader is here. I think it would be good if we can allay our fears, or if it is true, so that we can deal with this. And I think it would be appropriate for us as a House not to proceed with the Land Commission bill when we're having such a serious national or issue of national interest. Can he confirm whether the issue of the crash is true or whether it's merely a rumor?
All that I can confirm, Honorable Speaker, is that it's indeed true that there has been a crash of a KDF helicopter.
The crash site that was cordoned off with military presence has been declared a secure zone as investigations commence. President William Ruto, who had elevated Ogola to the apex of military command less than a year prior, convened an urgent assembly with top security brass at State House, and later the Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, President William Ruto, emerged to confirm the news. Retired President Uhuru Kenyatta promoted Major General Francis Ogola to the rank of Lieutenant General and subsequently appointed him as the Vice Chief of Defense Forces in July 23rd of 2021.
I, General Francis Ogola, Chief of the Kenya Defense Forces, do swear in the name of the Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Republic of Kenya and to the President as the Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defense Forces, that I will obey, preserve, protect, and defend this Constitution of Kenya and all other laws of the Republic, and that I will protect and uphold the sovereignty, integrity, and dignity of the people of Kenya.
General Ogola rests at age 61, serving in military for 40 years. Ode Francis, KTN News, Nairobi.
So who was General Francis Omondi Ogola? The decorated general, the 4th CDF post, the 2010 Constitution, had served as a Chief of Defense Forces for less than a year. Our reporter Vera Mora takes us through the life and times of Francis Ogola.
General Francis Omondi Ogola joined the Kenya Defense Forces on April 24, 1984, and was commissioned as the 2nd lieutenant on May 6, 1985, serving in the Kenya Air Force. He underwent training as a flight pilot and as an instructor pilot at the Kenya Air Force. Rising through the ranks, he eventually became the commander of the Kenya Air Force and then the vice chief of the KDF before assuming command of the military in early May.
That I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Republic of Kenya.
His appointment by President William Ruto was surprising to some due to past political tensions, but he was selected for his qualifications. Ogola has a diverse academic background, including a diploma in international studies and military science from Egerton University, a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science, Armed Conflicts and Peace Studies, and a Masters of Arts degree in International Studies from the University of Nairobi. Ogola, who has died at the age of 61, has been instrumental in enhancing the effectiveness of the Kenya Air Force and the Kenya Defense Forces through various training programs and operational strategies. Outside of his military career, He has held leadership positions in organizations such as the Military Christian Fellowship and the Association of African Air Chiefs. In his personal life, he enjoyed golfing and reading, and he survived by his wife Elaine and 2 children. Vera Mora, KT News, Nairobi.
Now also, General Francis Ogola was sworn into office on the 29th of April 2023 in a ceremony held at State House, Nairobi. The event was witnessed by President William Ruto. And speaking during the swearing-in ceremony, President Ruto challenged the Kenya Defence Forces to uphold professionalism and integrity of service. Let us reflect back on that day with a story by our reporter, Shadrach Miti.
Congratulations, my very best wishes, and I wish you even higher standards as you take over.
I, General Francis Ogola, Chief of the Kenya Defence Forces, do swear in the name of the Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Republic of Kenya and to the President as the Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defence Forces, that I will obey, preserve, protect, and defend this Constitution of Kenya and all other laws of the Republic, and that I will protect and uphold the sovereignty, integrity, and dignity of the people of Kenya.
To the entire military fraternity, it is my expectation and that of the government of Kenya that we shall continue to see a professional, a military that serves the people of Kenya. And as I have told you before, we do not expect to see ethnicity, bias, or any other consideration aside from professionalism. It is my expectation that the high standard that has been set by your predecessors, you will strive to attain even higher standards as you take over the leadership of the military.
Now, indeed, Kenyans still pouring their tributes, eulogizing the late CDF General Francis Ogola in their own personal ways. And we'll be sharing more of those tributes, including that of President William Ruto, which he vividly said to the rest of the nation in his address, celebrated, of course, the late General Francis Ogola, together with the other 9 officers who equally died in the line of duty. It's a dark moment for the country. And just to give you again the information that the president has declared a 3-day mourning period for this country. In fact, at this point in time, we will also witness flags flying at half-mast. The flags will be flying at half-mast in these 3 days, including the ESC flags, the KDF flags, and that of the Republic of Kenya. So we are also calling you in this morning to give us your words on this matter as we join in as a country. Remember, the late president, of course, the former, President Uhuru Kenyatta also eulogized the CDF General Francis Ogola, and the head of state, if I may just read quickly, said, "During this period of mourning, please accept my sincere condolences and heartfelt sympathies to the family, friends, and colleagues of the other officers of the ill-fated flight." The Azimio la Umoja leader also sent his condolences, spoke on this matter, and if I may quote what he said, Our hearts go out to his family and his colleagues in the KDF and the entire nation as we grieve this immense loss. United States Ambassador to Kenya, Meg Whitman, also conveyed her, deepest messages of condolences to the family of General Ogola and the other victims of the crash. I continue to give you more of those tributes as we progress with the conversation. But welcome to the Morning Prime this morning. I want to appreciate the guests in studio who have equally created time this morning in your honor, the viewer, to discuss current affairs. But first and foremost, I believe they also have something to say about this very dark time. But before I do, gentlemen, allow us to observe a moment of silence in the honor of the late General Francis Ogola. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Let me appreciate Frederick Okango, the Secretary of Political Affairs. Azimio, it's good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you.
It's a dark moment for the country. What would be opening remarks at this point in time? In fact, you're very active in politics. I've followed closely our defense forces, how we've been operating in matter security to this dark point. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a very sad moment for this country and the region. In fact, if you look at the history of his career, I think his interaction with even other soldiers outside the country, that is General Ogola, it's a very sad moment. The people of Kenya have lost dedicated, professional, motivated, passionate and resilient soldiers that served their country with passion. We are at a time when we all feel shaken to the core as a nation, as a people. And I want to say that reading from what his boss said about him, that is the president, his commander-in-chief, you can actually see the level of sadness that we are experiencing as a country. I pray that his family may find peace and comfort during these difficult moments. To the other soldiers who also perished in this chopper crash, we wish their families peace too. And may this not happen again in this country. We pray so. We are told that a team of investigators have been sent to the scene to establish the actual cause of the crash.
Yes, the Air Force team.
Yes. We also believe that that team may find it easy and be confident enough to actually reveal to the people of Kenya and to the families of the lost or the fallen soldiers, the actual death of their loved ones, so that this should not happen again in this country. The media tells us that this is the 5th crash in 12 months. If this is not worrying anyone in this country, then I don't know what will worry us. But I think it is too early maybe to start saying anything, as we wish the families, the best and comfort. We also want to wish the people of the country or the leadership of the military that are remaining the best in whatever they do, so that they can find it in their heart to continue the service to this nation, even as they mourn their befallen colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know we'll come back and look back in history a bit. It is a somber mode indeed in the country right now. But before I say any other or read any other eulogy, it's important to also appreciate on the set Maliba Arnold, who is a strategic communications advisor, UDA. Maliba, I have known you as somebody who is, very interested or probably invested in matter security. The last I checked, you followed closely Kenya's relationship internally, externally, and at this point in time, what would be your opening remarks, even as we eulogize the late CDF General Francis Ogola?
First of all, it's quite not just a sad morning, but we are going to actually have a very sad week going forward and in the coming days, because as a nation we have lost warrior number one. This is because he's the CDF, that is the man who sits at the ark that protects this country. And from whatever way you look at it, he also was accompanied by 9 others who lost their lives. And primarily we start at a point where we send condolences to the family and to those villages, hamlets, sub-counties and even counties that gave them these sons and daughters who actually stood watch for Kenya. For Ogola here, we are talking about 40 years plus in service. This he's actually done diligently, been with us throughout, stood duty and grown through the ranks to this particular point. I have been lucky to actually work in strategic communications, not just, today I work for a political party, but I have worked in security settings, still in the same end. And I would actually start by saying that, number one, we've lost a scholar and a soldier. It's sometimes difficult to have both a soldier and a scholar wrapped into one. So we have a gentleman, as it would be. Ogola was both a gentleman, a scholar and a soldier, a proper one as it were, standing up tall for the nation and doing as much as there could be. In the career that has actually been, he's weathered so much, broken the ceiling that was there in very many ways, and therefore even in death, of course, we say that generals don't die and all soldiers don't die. They just fade away into sunset. We want to thank them, of course, posthumously for their service to the country. A lot of people, of course, all of us serve the country in different capacities, but we do not do it in the way that these men actually do it. So whatever way you look at it, all of us are building the country differently. We are serving the country differently. But for the soldiers, they wake up and do it very, 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 very differently, because in the line between them and service is always their life. They, at any particular point, they are prepared to offer the ultimate sacrifice in their daily duties. The rest of us want to get home safe. For a lot of them, it's actually getting in harm's way. So quite a number of things, of course, will be happening. And even as we discuss this, there are a number of things that we will be looking at. Right. Of course, it's true that we have had a little bit of a problem, especially with our helicopter operations in the country, not just in the last 12 months, but about from 2019 to date, we've not really held a very good record. That is there. That has been both for civilian and military. Okay. Also, we have been in a situation where you realize that in the north, we've had the problem of banditry since independence. I think sometimes just after independence, we've had that problem. It's been running on for a very long time. He becomes the second most, not the second most, but the highest ever victim to actually, because he fell in the battlefield. There are no two ways about it. He was on duty. And like the soldier he was, he fell on the battlefield, inspecting schools that had actually been destroyed by bandits. So, of course, there is a former DC who went down in that particular area. Now we are talking about having lost the very top in the military. So I hope there are a number of things will happen. But quickly, before we actually move away from this, Anki, it's important.
All right, so that I can, okay.
Yeah, so that we bring in. Even as we mourn, there are a few things that actually come to fore, especially for those of us in communication. And I think that at DOD, the strategic communication team must review and revise how they approach, because how they actually deal with this, because the crisis communication in that particular very sensitive department, and I would actually just quickly point this and another one that happened yesterday, the previous day, that there was a time when silence was strategic communication, especially for people in kinetics and such like operations. But with the technology in social media, sometimes silence opens a room where other information goes on, and by the time you respond, it's too late. I say that because the other day there was the Lodwar incident. It took KDF 24 hours to do a statement to call to order what a few elements in the police had actually gotten too excited and done spinning, put out a lot of content to a level where it was actually polarizing and threatening the multi-agency cooperation. So I think that one of those things that we pick right away, even as we mourn, because for that particular unit, this is a unit that is a zero-fail mission type of unit, because the guys in the military, that any failure comes to such like consequences. So going forward, it's one of those things that they actually just have to fix, and now.
Have to fix, and now we don't have more time. We cannot allow these particular predicaments to even claim more lives, saying one of the highest ranked leaders in this country has now fallen. Let me appreciate in the studio Javas Bigambo, all right, who is a lawyer and a governance expert. You have found us right in the mood. We have already taken our moment of silence, but we appreciate your presence here today in the honor of the viewer and the soldiers that we lost yesterday in the line of duty. What would be your opening remarks this morning? How would you eulogize the officer?
I'm crestfallen. You see, first, I proffer my unreserved condolences and sympathies to His Excellency President William Ruto, who is the Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defence Forces, and the families of our fallen gallant soldiers, men and women who served this country with absolute dedication, starting with the highest of ranks, General Ogola. My heart and prayers go out to his family, especially his wife, Eileen, children, Lorna, and others. I cannot bring myself to understand the kind of tragedy, loss, grief that presently shrouds their families. At this moment, in fact, I would say that with the great memory of the words of Abraham Lincoln when he was speaking at Gettysburg, said that we as a nation then should take increased devotion in that cause for which these 9 soldiers gave their last full measure of devotion. In fact, it should inspire our national sense of sacrifice, dedication, and patriotism. But beyond that, this time is not just a time of reflection, it must be a time of action. And as a matter of fact, we as a people must realize that one of the most critical organs of this country has been affected. There has never been registered in the history of this country such a grave loss in the military than is presently being suffered by Kenya. And in this present situation, it behooves the security organs, and I appreciate with critical reflection on Article 240 of the Constitution, the National Security Council, to look at how, first of all, we take care of the operations of field exercises of our men and women when we put them on harm's way. These men and women who died yesterday died in the course of duty.
Right.
Now, as my kindred Maliba was speaking when I was taking my seat, there is, with retrospect, the kind of loss we've suffered in the police and in the military by having the instruments of war, helicopters, going down tragically. Yes, there are those that have gone down because of paratrooper exercises. There are those that have gone down having us lose men in the line of duty. There are those that have gone down having us lose distinguished citizens who are serving in the highest of ranks in this country. I have heard in the past, when I was at the Kenya Human Rights Commission, working with the Kenya Human Rights Institute, to conduct some research for CIPRIS, Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, looking at the issues to do with the military expenditure globally on the continent, and especially even here on the Horn of Africa, and some research that I've done. When you look at the yearbooks of CIPRI, tells you that the kind of conflicts, whether within, intra and extra-continentally here in Africa, the issue, the manner in which militaries expend their money on procuring, whether it is military equipment, aircraft, etc., and whatnot, brings me to a point where I ask myself, when we have had various choppers go down, and then just like yesterday, His Excellency the President said that investigations have commenced pronto on this matter. These reports have, of course, most of the time have never been brought to the fore for the general public to consume. But to what extent has the government benefited and taken action after such kind of reports of inquiry? And I think, moving forward, it is important that we must consider how we procure, and I'm not speculating, how we procure, especially choppers, the cost and whatnot. Much as that is a clandestine, or rather something that does not come to the surface or face audits when it comes to procuring here in this country. But it must concern this country. It concerns me this moment. We must be buying quality equipment, quality aircraft, if possible new. The same way, for example, we take care of mobility needs of our executive, the president, etc. Then we must also procure new choppers, etc., for our military. But I also want, in closing, to appeal to His Excellency the President, William Ruto. If we can now set up a fund for our military families. If you look at somebody like Captain Litali, has left a very young family. What will happen to this family? And for example, if you look at even Sergeant Nyawira, a very young lady, what will happen to their families that they have left behind? We need to set up a national fund for military families so that when we send our soldiers on harm's way and then they lose their lives tragically, their families should not suffer forever for such loss, that the country should take care of them.
Thank you very much for your opening remarks, Wakili. Let's also hear and appreciate in studio Harriet Njoki, who is also an advocate. It's very good to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. Great to be here this morning, which is not so good a morning.
Yeah, it's a dark time for the country. We all in here would love to hear your opening remarks to this dark day. Remember, it's 3 days of mourning, and East Africa has joined, including Uganda and Tanzania. We're just looking at their papers this morning, and they have joined in this dark moment. Karibu to the show.
Thank you very much, Anki. You know, it's an extremely sad day for the country, and I'd say not just for the country but for the region as well and the world.
Yes.
Because we are aware of the various interventions that our service is able to contribute to, both locally, regionally, and even internationally. So when something such as this happens, its effects go beyond the national territories. But I'd like us to take this moment truly to do a couple of things. One, to convey our deepest and my personal deepest condolences to the families. And again, to say that as a citizen of this country, when something such as this happens, it's not only is the duty, and we appreciate the president for what he did yesterday, but to invite every Kenyan to ask ourselves what extra mile we can go for our servicemen and women, people who put their lives, every day, their lives are on the line for our sakes, for the sake of our country. And therefore, as the president leads us in the speeches and as we lower our flags individually, let us also take that as a personal responsibility to condole with the families. The other thing is to say that we wish quick recovery to those who have been hospitalized.
To survivors?
Yes. It's not easy because they will leave not only with the physical scars, but there's also the trauma and the impact. You know, when this happened yesterday, I called a few of my friends in the service, just one to check on them, because there was a lot of speculation around it. We knew that a number of people were there. So the first thing, of course, is to check whether the people that you know are safe. And you could generally feel the sense of loss and sadness, because each one of them it shakes them. You take that moment to reflect. I mean, some of these people have been tested time and again in Somalia, in different places. Some of them have tested near-death situations so many times in service of this country. And so even though there are the people who then have been directly impacted, you see that it has a direct impact on many others, including our men and women in the service. So again, it is a call to our country to ask ourselves, you know, right now the doctors are on strike, for instance. Our men in uniform they are prohibited from going on strike. Why? Because of the sensitive role that then their duty also calls upon. Of course, even the doctors, it's sensitive and all that. But because these people cannot picket, even as we are looking at national housing and all those things, can we ask ourselves, are we really attending to the welfare of our servicemen and women? My colleague here has just talked about a fund for military families. But today I want us to think more about the broader scheme of our men and women. People in the National Police Service, our APs, we send them to deal with bandits. And today, the NHIF, for instance, is not working. So when they go there and they are attacked, what exactly, are we just going to come and issue a statement and then move on? So I call upon today all the stakeholders in this country, including the executive, to really take this moment to reflect that when a thing such as this has happened, in addition to the investigations that we are going to have and all that, how do we make sure that we are able to safeguard the life and the welfare of each and every one of our servicemen and women, from their health care, from their accommodation in terms of housing, from their, even the families. What kind of schemes do we have for these people? Because every day a police officer, even the AP who goes to guard the banks, every day they leave, they are not sure that there will be an attack at the bank and they may lose their lives. So are we taking care of them in such a manner that should they lose their lives, then their families will actually not live in squalor? So I take this chance to call each and every one of us to actually have a conversation, so that let this be a reminder to us that we owe a duty to our servicemen and women, and let it not stop at the 3 days of mourning. Let's make direct interventions.
All right. And I want to appreciate your voices on this matter, honorable panelists, but also just to echo the condolences passed from the woman representative Nairobi, Honorable Esther Passaris, who said, as we come to terms with the sudden loss of the Chief of Defense Forces, I extend my deepest condolences to the family and friends of our hero, General Francis Ogola. Not only did Major Ogola exemplify patriotism, he understood the true excellence lies in dedicating oneself to the betterment of our nation. May he rest in peace. Many other leaders have eulogized the late Francis Ogola in their own personal ways. And before we take a very short breather, Arnold, you had mentioned something, and I will come back to you. I want to come back to you on that, because the question now for Kenyans, and you know, he sat at a very sensitive position for this country as far as security is concerned. For Kenyans who want to understand that there's no vacancy, that we are still safe, what exactly is happening? What next in the line of servicing as far as security is concerned?
As far as it is, of course, there's the continuity of, you know, for guys in kinetics, literally, there is never a vacancy. There is no vacuum. That even if you are in an attack, a single file attack is just guys queuing and probably going in for to neutralize an objective or rather a target or something, is that if the commander, the guy at the front falls, the next person automatically picks in. Automatically picks in. So I know the National Security Council sat yesterday. It's not for me to actually go into those details, but we also know that the Tonjo rules do exist. The current, the fallen CDF, of course, was from the Air Force. We know that next in line, of course, is the Kenya Navy. So it's been rotational, and in both those ends, whatever happens, by the way, within the military is that you bring a critical mass of capable officers at the very top, so that you pick just the first among the equals to actually head the others. So ordinarily, at any particular point, we have got a very good critical mass of guys who can pick up. Looking at the nature of engagement, in that you have got what I call a zero-fail day, or a zero-fail mission, and none of those men, of course, a few specialists, a few other non-combat officers do exist, but majorly, literally everything in uniform in our barracks can actually shoot and march and can go to war. And we know that one of the other outcomes of going to war and mission is that you might not come back or you could be wounded. So I know the National Security Council sat yesterday. That is why it took a little bit of time for State House to release a statement. But literally before, ordinarily, you will rush out with a statement. But for this, the NSC had to sit down. So I'm leaving that for the president to actually make up an announcement later on in the morning and during the day. As for the rest of us, I think we will rather focus on the morning. This is too much, it's too weighty for us. But I can tell you that the service, as structured, is made in a way that there is no vacancy. There is no vacuum, and there is no need to worry. The country is well protected.
Thank you very much. The country is well protected. We had to give that 1 hour as we begin this show in the honor of the fallen soldiers who passed on in the line of duty. We must remember all their names. And I want to appreciate and stand with the families of the other 9 officers who passed away. Brigadier Swale Said, Colonel Duncan Ketani, Lieutenant Colonel David Sawe, Major George Benson Magondu, who was also the pilot, Captain Sora Mohammed, Captain Hilary Litali, Senior Sergeant John Kinywa Mureithi, Sergeant Cliff Wons Omondi, and Sergeant Rose Nyawira. As we take a very short breather, I also want to say that the late Ogola was the 11th military chief's, of course, journey lasted about 40 years since he began, and Ogola was appointed CDF in April last year. He was the 4-star general, and he held key military leadership roles, rising to occupy the KDF's ultimate role. However, General Francis Ogola's death has come barely a year since his appointment, and this makes him the shortest serving military chief in Kenya's history. Remember, there is investigations underway, and we leave it at that with my very able panelists who are also Kenyans. And we take a very short breather. We will come back with the different current affairs making the agenda of the discussion.